You know, there is something about silence that most people never really understand until they experience it from the other side. It is not loud, it does not demand anything, and it certainly does not beg for attention. Silence just exists. It sits there, calm and unbothered, while everything around it spins out of control. And that is exactly what makes it so incredibly powerful. It does not try to win arguments or prove points. It does not raise its voice or throw things around just to be noticed. Instead, it simply stands firm, steady, and completely unshakable. While everyone else is talking, yelling, or trying to be heard, silence forces people to listen to the things that were never even said out loud. Most men have no idea about this. They walk through life thinking that the loudest voice in the room is the one that holds all the power. They believe that whoever talks the most, whoever argues the hardest, or whoever makes the biggest scene is the one who wins. But that is not even close to the truth. Real power does not come from how much noise you make. It comes from how much control you have over yourself. When your silence comes from a deep place inside you, a place where you are grounded and secure in who you are, it cuts deeper than any speech, any argument, or any emotional outburst ever could. This kind of silence is not empty. It is not you running away or hiding from conflict. It is pure, unbreakable strength. It is a signal to everyone around you that you are done playing small, petty games with your emotions. Think about it. When you have poured everything you have into a relationship, your time, your energy, your loyalty, your love, and all you get back is disrespect, manipulation, or being taken for granted, walking away into complete silence is not a loss. It is actually the moment where you draw a line in the sand and stop trying to convince someone of your worth. Words are tools we use to communicate with others, but they also give people something to fight against. They give them ammunition to twist your meaning, misinterpret your intentions, or use your own emotions against you. Silence, on the other hand, does the complete opposite. It removes all the fuel that keeps their fire burning. It turns the mirror back on them so they have no choice but to look at themselves. Without your explanations, your defenses, or your reactions to hide behind, she is left alone with her own thoughts. She has to replay everything that happened. She has to think about the decisions she made, the way she treated you, and the consequences of her own actions. The moment you stop reacting, stop explaining yourself, and stop chasing after her approval, everything shifts. You are no longer the one absorbing all the damage. You move from being emotionally available and vulnerable to being calm, detached, and untouchable. Your silence reveals who was really holding the relationship together and who was just coasting on your effort. It shows that your peace is not up for negotiation anymore. It shows that your attention, your respect, and your presence are gifts that can be taken away the moment they are no longer valued. Now, if any of this is hitting home for you right now, if you are recognizing yourself in this situation, I want you to do something. Give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can keep getting daily reminders about staying strong, staying clear, and reclaiming your power. Drop a number 1 in the comments if you already understand this level of self-control, or drop a number 2 if today is the day you are taking your power back. I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Stay with me through this entire message because what you are about to learn will completely change the way you see yourself and your relationships. Once you understand this mindset, you stop being a passive observer in your own life and you start taking full control. She was completely prepared for chaos. She had a mental script ready, one she had used before and knew would work. She expected late-night texts where you would pour your heart out, trying to make her understand how much you cared. She thought there would be long, emotional messages where you tried to make sense of everything that went wrong. She expected you to fight for her, to exhaust yourself trying to fix what she was the one who broke in the first place. That is how it always went. It was a predictable pattern. She would create the mess, and you would come running in to clean it up, to soothe her, to make her feel important again. Her entire sense of power was built on one assumption. No matter how far she pushed you, no matter how cold or distant she became, no matter how much she disrespected you, you would always come back. You would always explain yourself, defend yourself, and try to win her approval. She wanted the noise because noise meant you were still emotionally invested. It meant she still had control over you. But this time, you did something completely unexpected. You did not give her the fight she was looking for. You did not argue, you did not defend yourself, and you did not send her a single message. You gave her silence. Complete, solid, unshakable silence. And it was not the petty kind of silence where you were just trying to play games or make her jealous. It was intentional. It was purposeful. You did not disappear to manipulate her emotions. You stepped back for one very clear reason. You were done trying to prove your value to someone who refused to see it. That silence became a mirror. For the first time, she had nothing to push against. There were no words to twist, no emotions to manipulate, no explanations to pick apart. Without your noise to distract her, she was left alone in a quiet room with nothing but her own thoughts, her own pride, and her own mistakes staring back at her. When a man who used to explain everything suddenly says nothing at all, that silence is not just an absence of sound. It becomes a confrontation with her own conscience. That is when the weight of being cut off truly hits her. Most men think women are afraid of conflict, but they are not. Conflict is familiar. It means you still care enough to react. What truly terrifies someone is indifference. When you stop reacting, when you remove the warm, supportive energy she took for granted, you create a void. And in that void, every dismissive comment she made starts to echo. Every time she ignored your effort, every time she tested your patience, it all comes back louder than any argument ever could. You did not have to raise your voice or say hurtful things. You just walked away with dignity. You got off the emotional roller coaster and stopped making her the center of your world. She waited for the grand finale. She waited for that one last text, that late night phone call where you would try to fix everything. But instead of desperation, all she found was stillness. And that is when it hit her. She did not just lose an argument. She lost a high-value man who was consistent, who was loyal, who gave his best without being asked. That realization starts to burn slowly inside her. She did not just lose your attention for a moment. She lost access to the best version of you permanently. And deep down, she knows she will never get that back. At first, she tells herself the silence is temporary. She thinks you are just cooling off, playing a little game to see who reaches out first. She goes about her day expecting to see some sign, a view on her social media story, a random late-night text to break the ice. But as hours turn into days, and days turn into weeks of complete radio silence, her confidence starts to crack. The silence is no longer a pause. It becomes a countdown. To protect her ego, she might tell her friends that you ghosted her, that you were cold, that you never really cared. But even as she says those things, she knows the truth. She remembers how steady you were. She remembers the effort you put in, the way you made her feel safe when her world was falling apart. That is when the truth hits her hard. Attention is easy to get. She can open her phone and have a dozen men telling her she is beautiful just for the chance to talk to her. But a stable, emotionally secure, genuinely good man is rare. Very rare. Every day that passes without a word from you reinforces something she was not ready to accept. You were never stuck with her. You were not there out of desperation. You were choosing to give her your time and energy every single day. And now that you have taken that choice back and found your peace, she is left counting down the days until it is all truly over and there is nothing she can do to stop it. As that countdown continues, the silence stops being just a gap and starts stripping away every excuse she had. Real silence, the kind that comes from self-respect, does not hide emotion. It reveals truth. When you are no longer there to argue with, her mind tries to fill the void. She scrolls through old messages. She rereads old conversations, trying to rewrite the narrative in her head. She searches for some reason to make you the villain. But no matter how hard she tries, she finds nothing. There are no new fights to fuel her anger. There are no explanations she can twist. There are no reactions she can weaponize. She is just left with the cold, hard facts of how she treated you. Before, you were her emotional buffer. You were the one who absorbed her moods, who explained yourself to keep the peace, who made excuses for her behavior. But the moment you went silent, you removed her safety net. You stopped absorbing the impact. You stepped aside and let her deal with the consequences of her own actions. The full weight of her choices, her pride, and her disrespect now sits entirely on her shoulders because you are no longer there to carry it for her. Without you there to soften the blow, the quiet truth becomes unbearable. It is heavier than her pride. It forces her to see that your silence did not just end the conversation, it exposed everything. She was prepared for fire. She was ready for anger because in her mind, if you were angry, it meant you still cared. Anger is emotional. It is messy, but it is also a sign that someone is still invested. But your calm, composed demeanor caught her completely off guard. You did not explode. You did not lash out. You did not make a scene just to get her attention. You simply closed the door with dignity and walked away without a sound. That level of composure is far more terrifying than rage because composure is final. It does not say you are hurt and need her to fix it. It says, without words, that you are done. Not angry, just done. Up until that moment, she thought she was in control of your emotions. But your silent exit taught her a hard truth. She never had control. She only had access. And once that access is revoked, without bitterness or drama, she realizes she has no power over you anymore. She cannot manipulate your peace. She cannot guilt you back. She has no place in your future. That is when her outside life gets louder. You will see her posting constantly on social media. Big smiles, nights out, captions about living her best life. She is trying to convince the world and herself that she is unbothered by your absence. But do not be fooled. That noise is not confidence. It is a distraction. Every post, every forced laugh, every night out is just an attempt to outrun the quiet truth waiting for her at home. Because the moment the music stops and she is alone in her room at night, reality sets in. She spent so long thinking that love was supposed to be loud and chaotic. But your quiet exit taught her something she was not ready to learn. Real value does not need to announce itself. You cannot fill a void with noise. No matter how many pictures she posts or how many parties she attends, the mask gets heavy. It gets exhausting. And when the high of distraction fades, she is left with regret. She is left missing the steady, grounded man she had right in front of her, the man she did not respect until he was gone. As she begins to date again, she finds herself frustrated. Every new conversation feels shallow and loud. The men she meets now are overeager. They talk too much, trying to prove their worth with words. They fill every silence because they are uncomfortable with stillness. None of them have your quiet confidence. They react to her moods immediately. They bend to her whims just to keep her attention. They are predictable, and she can see right through them. Without realizing it, your composure reset her standard for what a strong man looks like. You did not do it by being aggressive or demanding. You did it by simply standing firm in your self-respect. You showed her what it looks like when a man knows his worth and refuses to beg for validation. Now, every time a new guy over-explains himself or tries too hard, it reminds her of you. It reminds her of the calm, self-assured man she threw away. And it brings her face to face with a finality she never expected. In her mind, there was always going to be one last conversation, One final scene where she could rewrite the narrative and paint herself as the victim. She wanted to keep the door cracked open just enough so she could pull you back whenever she felt like it. That was her pattern. But instead of playing that game, you walked away with clarity. You did not ask for closure. You did not need a final word. You did not feel the need to prove you were right. You left not to punish her, but because your peace became more valuable than her presence. When a man walks away from toxicity without drama, he takes his energy, his spirit, and his future with him. He leaves nothing behind. And that absence is something she will feel for the rest of her life. The door was not slammed in anger. It was closed quietly because you outgrew the chaos. Eventually, when the reality of your absence truly sets in, she will reach out. It usually does not start with a real apology. It starts small and casual. A meme. A "hey, how have you been" text. A like on an old photo. You need to understand what this is. It is not because she has changed. It is a test. She is checking to see if she still has access to your heart. She is testing the fence to see if the door is still open, just a crack. What she does not realize is that the man who used to wait for her name to pop up on his screen no longer exists. That version of you is gone. Your time and attention are now invested in building your own life, your goals, your body, your mind, your future. If you respond, you are just stepping back into the cycle you worked so hard to escape. Responding to her breadcrumbs with continued, permanent silence is the ultimate power move. It does not just show that you have moved on. It proves that you no longer need her validation, her attention, or her words. You have evolved beyond it, and you are finally free.